My name is Ben Williams, and I want to talk to you today about a very serious concern. Did you know that in 2015, suicide has claimed more lives than homicide, making it the second largest killer of teens and young adults? What I'd like to do is share some information with you on what is suicide, suicide attempts, and suicide ideations, some common risk factors, suicide prevention, and some common warning signs. With that being said, Webster defines suicide as the act or instance of taking one's life voluntarily and intentionally. It is also important to remember, when talking about suicide, two additional terms. The CDC defines suicide attempt as a non-fatal, self-directed, potentially injurious behavior with the instance to die. Suicide ideation is thinking about, considering, or planning suicide. In a nationwide survey of high schools, the CDC had found that 16% of students reported seriously considering suicide, 13% reported of creating a plan, and 8% reported in trying to take their own lives within a 12-month preceding the survey. Additionally, each year, 157,000 young adults receive medical care in the emergency rooms across the United States. With those definitions, why do people turn to suicide? There is no one answer for this question. It can be when stress becomes too much for coping abilities, or a traumatic or emotional event occurs. Each case differs. However, we can say and track common risk factors, such as a history of previous suicide attempts, family or depression and other mental illnesses, alcohol, drug abuse, or easy access to lethal methods, just to name a few. It is important to remember that suicidal thoughts or actions are a sign of extreme distress, not a bid for attention, and should never be ignored. With this in mind, this leads us to prevention. Prevention comes in several forms: personal stress reduction, support from others, and professional help. Personal stress reduction is something that each person finds enjoyable or helpful in reducing their stress. This can take any form, whether hobbies, religion, exercise, or really anything the person there finds enjoyable to help reduce their stress. It is important to keep in mind that these activities should not create more stress than they say reduce. Also, alcohol and drug abuse, both street and prescription, should be avoided, as these can increase your risk factors. In 2010, the CDC found that approximately 33% of suicides, fatalities, tested positive for alcohol, 23% for antidepressants, and 20% for opiates, such as heroin or prescription painkillers. Next, we'll talk about support from others. This can be friends, family, classmates, or anyone who can recognize a change in personality or behavior. According to the National Institute for Mental Health, often family and friends are the first to recognize the warning signs of suicide and can take the first steps towards helping an at-risk individual find treatment with someone who specializes in diagnoses mental health conditions. A mental health professional can provide a tailored treatment or therapies for mental conditions related to suicide, such as depression and anxiety. These include national and local programs, such as the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, that can be reached at 1-800-273-8255 or 1-800-273-TALK. You can also use the crisis text line by typing hello to 741-741. In Macon, there's a 24-hour crisis line of 478-751-4484. Also, you can always contact your local mental health provider. Next, we'll sit and talk about the warning signs of suicide. One thing to always be on the lookout is for behavior or entirely new behavior. This is especially true after a painful loss or a major change, such as changing schools, loss of someone dear, joining the military, incarceration. It can be a numerous different things. Most people who are thinking of suicide show one or more of the following warning signs, either by what they say or what they do. If a person talks about being a burden to others, feeling trapped, experiencing unbearable pain, having no reason to live, or flat out saying that they want to kill themselves, these are definite warning signs and should not be taken lightly. Some behavioral changes you may see are increased use of alcohol or drugs, maybe searching on the internet for ways of killing themselves, acting recklessly, withdrawing from activities or family and friends, visiting or calling people to say goodbye, or giving away prized possessions, or maybe they will say and just act unusually aggressive. If you see any of these signs, you should say and immediately ask the person, do they feel as if they're going to hurt themselves? Be blunt and straight up with them. Ask them, are you thinking of killing yourself? Next, you should keep them safe. Reduce a person's access to anything that they consider and use to hurt themselves, or places such as rooftops or other places that they say may actually hurt themselves. Ask the person if they have a plan. And if they have a plan, make sure you do everything you can to get them away from that plan. If it's taking away their weapons, prescription medication, whatever it is, to prevent them from taking their life. Next, call for help. Do not leave them alone. Do not let them swear you to secrecy. This is not something that should be ever taken lightly. If necessary, dial 911 or get a hold of emergency services if the person has already attempted to hurt themselves. If they haven't, get them in touch with a mental health provider. Get them help. You can also contact a trusted individual, such as a spiritual leader, a family member, or someone. Finally, if you have no other means, contact the National Suicide Prevention Line at 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255. In conclusion, we have discussed suicide, suicide attempts, and suicide ideations. We have covered some common risk factors with suicide. We have talked about prevention and some important contact information. And finally, we have looked at signs of someone thinking of committing suicide. Thank you so much for your time.